Hi, I'm Jennifer Wexler, a curator on the Stonehenge exhibition. Welcome to my corner. So today I want to talk to you about the sun and these amazing objects in front of me. These are replicas of Bronze Age razors from Scandinavia. Note, these are not real. The real ones are teeny tiny, about this big. So we've blown them up and made them out of golden acrylic. So you can see these beautiful details of the designs on the razors, which show an intricate mythology connected to the cycle of the sun and how it moves across the sky over the course of the day. As you can see on these razors, we have a lot of depictions of ships. Why is that? So if we think about the geography of Scandinavia, where these razors were created, there's large bodies of water to the east and the west. So unsurprisingly, the Bronze Age Scandinavians probably associated the rising and setting of the sun with the ocean, and unsurprisingly, boats. You can see here these razors are actually shaped like boats, and they all depict boats. And so there's this idea that the sun moved through its cycle, it was transported on a boat. But there's also some strange creatures connected to these boats. So I just want to introduce you to the characters that are on these razors. We're going to start just before the sunrise, which is represented by this razor here. And what we've got, this fish and a boat. And then the fish again with a bird and another boat. And then the boat kind of continues on, which you can see here. There's two suns and the nice sort of midday boat. And you start to see this strange creature, which is the swirly sort of wiggly figure, which becomes a horse with a sun, which you can see appear over here next to another boat. And as the sun horse moves across, we have the boat again. And then if you continue on, we've got another boat and a serpent. So what does this all mean? It seems like a strange grouping of animals and boats and suns. What are we talking about here? It's all a bit odd, but let's go into detail. So actually, what these razors are showing are the movement of the sun over the course of the day. And we're starting here just before dawn. And actually, we're under the water, which is why we have a fish here. So first we have this boat, which is the night boat. And as the sun moves under the sea during the night, it can only be fetched up by this character, which is a fish. Obviously, fish are under the sea, so that makes sense. So the fish captures the sun and moves it onto the morning boat. The morning boat then slowly moves towards the shore, and it encounters sometimes, not always, this bird, which you can see together next to the fish. The bird might take the sun and then move it up to our next character, the sun horse. But sometimes the bird isn't there because there seems to be variations in this myth. So we see here this amazing sort of fully blown, beautiful boat with this full sail, and you see these two beautiful suns sitting on there, and it's waiting for a really important character, which is this little squiggly guy, which becomes the sun horse. Sometimes it gets the sun directly from the boat, you can see that here. Sometimes the sun horse actually gets the sun directly from this bird, which flies up to it, up in the midday sky. And this sun horse, he is taking the sun through the sky over the course of the afternoon into the evening, and it's coming to another boat. And this boat is sitting on the shore, and as that boat moves off towards the horizon and the end of the day, we get this amazing creature, which is a serpent. The serpent, you can see, actually starts hiding the sun. And what it's doing is pulling the sun under the water. So, it's literally pulling it down into the depths of the sea as the sun sets. And it goes back under the water and it travels on the night boat until it meets its important fish that brings it back up to light. Again, the cycle restarts. And so we see the full day of explanation of how the sun actually moves. And it only can move because it's connected to these amazing creatures. So how do we know these objects are connected to the sun cycle mythology? At this time, we have no writing, we have no written record. So how do we know? Hundreds of these razors have been found across Scandinavia and Northern Europe. And an archaeologist named Flemming Koll at the National Museum of Denmark has done a huge amount of research around the sun cycle. He spent hundreds of hours, as curators often do, looking at all these razors, hundreds of them, drawing them, and actually studying the motifs very, very closely. And you can see what we've just pointed out to you is that all the motifs actually overlap. So you start to get a story and a sequence of the sun movement and the sun kind of batting between these different animals and the boats. And actually, they've got directionality built into them. They all face right. So the boats face right and the animals generally face right. So we have a direction of movement across the razors as they move across the sun cycle. And that reflects the way the sun moves over the course of the day. If you're in the northern hemisphere and you actually observe it in the sky, the sun looks like it's moving from the left across the sky. So it's reflective of people's observation of the world, which is really fascinating. I'm going to talk about death now. Is that okay? So we have hundreds of these razors, but where are they found? There's a really interesting story here because all these razors have been found with cremation burials. But interestingly, they're in the cremation, in the urn with the cremated remains, but they're not burned. So they're placed into the remains afterwards, but they're placed in already knackered. They're used objects. They're not brand new, pristine objects. They might have been used also as part of the burial rituals of kind of, cleaning the body before, you sort of undertake your cremation. But they're certainly personal objects. And something that's really fascinating with them is that they seem to be associated with the individuals, primarily men. And we think that maybe they're even given to men at adolescence, at puberty, as part of maybe initiation rites that kind of brings you into this like secret knowledge around sort of the solar power and these religious ideas connected to the sun cycle. But what's really fascinating is that each individual has one razor. So they're associated with a part of this story, a part of the sun cycle, maybe a particular animal like this amazing sun horse, which obviously might be the most powerful animal. We don't know, or maybe the fish or the sea serpent. So they have this personal connection to these kind of deities of the sun cycle. And possibly, this is connected to the time of birth, where they burn in the afternoon, in the morning. Maybe that's how you get connected to the fish or the sun horse. Maybe it's even a name that you take on as part of your identity. The really key point here is that all of these objects, all of these razors have been found individually in separate archaeological sites. So really to piece together this story was a massive jigsaw puzzle. And that's why it took so much effort by Fleming Call to kind of get this all in together and into a story that we can understand today and then connect it out to all these other amazing objects we have during this time. So it's a real sort of detective story that we're seeing here coming together to tell us this wonderful mythology that we never thought existed, almost 4,000 years ago. Thanks so much for joining me in this exploration of the strange mythological world of the sun in Europe. Hopefully you'll learn a lot more from this and come see the exhibition if you want to hear more.